Hello and welcome to Views on News. I'm Jawad Hami. In today's program, we are going to talk about two important developments. The first relates to the seventh round of the Moscow format talks, in which some of the leading countries from the region participated, and a joint statement was issued. And also, this was the first time the delegation, which was led by interim Afghan Foreign Minister Amir Khan Muttaqi, also participated in these Moscow format talks in Russia. And in the second segment, we are going to understand as to what is happening at this particular point in time in Gaza. The killing continues unabated on the part of the Israeli illegal regime and its illegal occupation forces, despite the indirect talks between the parties, which are underway for 3 days. And these talks are at the same time are underway, and there are certain things which have been seen as a major development during these particular talks. So why is Israel still resorting to the use of force and killing the innocent Palestinians? We will be trying to understand as to the motive at this particular point in time of the Israeli regime. So the first segment, the Moscow format talks. In a joint statement, the parties had called for strengthening the counterterrorism cooperation at both bilateral and multilateral levels. They emphasized that Afghanistan should be supported to undertake comprehensive measures aimed at the elimination of terrorism and its eradication within a short time frame, so that Afghan soil is not used as a threat to the security of the neighboring countries and beyond. The parties underscored that terrorism constitutes a serious threat to the security of Afghanistan, the region, and the wider world. We have also seen on the sidelines of this particular Moscow format talks, Pakistan's ambassador had a meeting with the interim Afghan Foreign Minister Amir Khan Muttaqi. Also, he raised the issue of terrorist hideouts in Afghanistan, at the same time reaffirming Pakistan's unwavering commitment to a peaceful, stable, and secure Afghanistan. He has also emphasized the urgent need for collective regional efforts to effectively counter terrorism and dismantle all the terrorist groups operating from the Afghan soil. One of the most important points to be noted from that joint statement is that all the regional countries have opposed any attempt on the part of any foreign country, not explicitly talking about the United States of America, about regaining the foothold in Afghanistan by retaking the control of the strategically important Bagram air base. So what this particular joint statement had to say, let me quote that. The members called unacceptable the attempts by the countries to deploy their military infrastructure in Afghanistan and neighboring states, since this does not serve interest of the regional peace and stability, unquote. Earlier, we had seen US President Donald Trump had said the base is an hour away from China, where it makes the nuclear weapons, and he had also sought to take the control of the biggest air facility, which happens to be the Bagram air base in Afghanistan. He had also threatened of bad things would happen to Afghanistan if it did not give back Bagram air base, and also at the same time citing that very strategic location vis-a-vis China. One of the most important, another very important point that is to be noted regarding this particular Moscow format talk is India has backed this particular joint statement. What does that particularly signify? At the same time, the speech which was made by interim Afghan authorities Foreign Minister Amir Khan Muttaqi, in which he said Afghanistan is a free and independent country, and throughout history it has never accepted the military presence of the foreigners. Our decision and the policy will remain the same to keep Afghanistan free and independent. There are other also very important points made by Amir Khan Muttaqi during the course of our conversation. We'll be taking them up for discussion and the analysis. Let me quickly bring in, we are on to being joined in the studio by Mr. Major General retired Zahid Mahmood. He is Defense Analyst. General Mahmood, thank you very much for your time, for being with us on the show tonight. Really appreciate that. At the same time, we are honored to be joined on the video link by Mr. Tahir Khan. He's Afghan affairs expert as well as a journalist. Mr. Khan, thank you very much for your time, also for being with us on this show tonight. Really appreciate that. General Mahmood, when we specifically talk about this particular joint statement, let's start with the emphasis which has been laid on the counterterrorism efforts, and also urgency of collective efforts in that particular regard. This particular joint statement specifically talks about the short time frame which has been given to the interim Afghan authorities. From his part, Amir Khan Muttaqi claims that Afghanistan has transitioned from a security concern to a partner in regional stability and economic progress, with significant progress in security, foreign policy and economy, also saying at the same time that the Afghan government effectively manages security challenges including Daesh and narcotics trafficking, and urges regional countries to independently investigate and address the issue. Now, in this particular address, he specifically talks and mentions Daesh. Why not about TTP, other militant and terrorist organizations which are taking safe haven in Afghanistan? Why is he shying away from that?
Thank you very much, Tiami, for the invite. I think it's a challenging situation in Afghanistan. There can be many statements which are made by Afghan interim setup. There are countries in that in this conference which might be apparently cosmetically they are supporting the elimination of the terrorism and addressing the issue of terrorism, but they're using this soil as their proxy lead, you know. As far as your question is concerned, that why Muttaqi, probably he's directly addressing the United States concerns which are from the Daesh and other franchises which are operating over there. And one of the reason of taking back Bagram, I mean, though President Trump, as you have alluded, that said that China is an hour away from that place, but primarily they want to be in this region to not to leave any vacuum for any other country. But it's challenging. Of course, everybody is interested to have a stable Afghanistan, because countries like Pakistan is mostly affected by none other than Afghanistan, though it is the Afghanistan soil is being used and they are partner with India. Let there be no doubt in waging this proxy against us, using their soils and now even using their manpower, and their collaboration with TTP is, I mean, it's very evident, it's very clear, we have no doubt in this. The most important thing in this conference, which everybody is talking about the independent, everybody is talking about the united, and everybody is talking about the of no terrorism in at Afghanistan soil. So and they are talking about the, you know, peaceful Afghanistan. Now, if you want to be independent, then there is supposed to be no interference from any other country, you know, maybe using that okay. And if you're talking about the united, you will be united once there will be all inclusive government in Afghanistan, all factions are included. And once you're talking about the peaceful, then that terrorism factor comes. If you're becoming victim of terrorism, you yourself, it means that neighboring countries are also becoming, and terrorism is a lead policy and lead economic activity, to be very honest. $7 billion ammunition and weapon is lying there. The illegal spectrum is uncounted for, and their connection between the criminal mafias and the terrorism, that is also evident. And the states are using this money, this mafias, for their nefarious designs, and it is being used. So if you want to have a stable Afghanistan, so you will have to address all these issues together.
Right. Mr. Tahir Khan, what's your understanding when this particular joint statement more specifically talks about a short time frame, and also have urged the interim Afghan authorities to take concrete measures in order to eliminate the scourge of terrorism from Afghanistan, which poses a threat to all the regional and neighboring countries. At the same time, Amir Khan Muttaqi in his address has claimed that it has Afghanistan under the Taliban leadership or the interim Afghan authorities leadership has had major grounds achieved in terms of the security issues, and also mentioning of Daesh. Firstly, what do you understand of this particular short time frame, and what if the Afghan Taliban don't collaborate or cooperate on this particular front within a short time span? What are going to be the options for the regional countries, and also why is Muttaqi shying away from mentioning other groups also when he mentions of Daesh only?
Salam to you, to your guest, and to your viewers. This is a question many people would ask the Afghan government, because if you read all the statements issued by any regional or international groups or countries, they mention all these groups. So this is a question to be asked from the Taliban leadership, because the entire world, if we keep Pakistan away for a timing being. So if you look to the United Nations is the international body, and almost every country is the member of the UN. Afghanistan is the member. This government is not recognized, so it is still represented by the seat is with the former government, but Afghanistan is a member of the UN. So the problem is Afghan government should realize that the Taliban is not a group now. They are ruling Afghanistan, and they have full control of Afghanistan. The previous government, Panjshir, was not under the control of the Taliban, but this time Panjshir and all provinces, 34 provinces. So this is the question that the people are telling them. They are mentioning Al Qaeda, they are mentioning TTP, they are mentioning BLA, even in the four countries meeting in Moscow one day before this Moscow format consultations, that these groups were mentioned. And last month in New York, the same countries, Pakistan, China, Russia, and Iran, at the foreign minister level, they also mentioned all these groups. So this is up to the Afghan Taliban that they should address this issue. When the Chinese foreign minister was there for the trilateral with Pakistan and Afghanistan and China, so if you look to the Chinese media, they mention ETIM, and the Chinese foreign minister is very in a polite way. They invited the attention of the Afghan government, the Taliban government, as ETIM is on the terror list of the United Nations. So this was the message to them. So they should realize this. It is not only Daesh, and with Daesh, the
Short time frame,
Taliban.
as per this joint statement, Mr. Tahir Khan, what about this short time frame within this joint statement? What could be that possible short time frame, and if the Afghan Taliban don't cooperate with the regional countries in order to deal or address this particular menace of terrorism, what are going to be the likely options at the hands of all these regional countries at a time they are all emphasizing the need for the collective efforts?
I would say that frustration of the countries would increase, and I have heard from own people here in Islamabad that previously some countries would ask Pakistan to engage with the Afghan Taliban. Don't put pressure on the Afghan Taliban. So the Pakistan would be listening to them. But now all these countries, and many were part of the Moscow format because there were 11 countries. Now Afghanistan has been included as a member. Now Pakistan is telling them that what you were telling us, we always respected that. But now, because even today, the military announced that 11 Pakistani soldiers and 2 officers, they were martyred in Orakzai. So, and this is now almost a routine matter. And Pakistan concerns are genuine. And I think the regional countries and the world community now, they have realized that this issue is not resolved, because yesterday when the Pakistani special envoy and the delegation was meeting the Afghan foreign minister, and there was a 90 minutes meeting. So Pakistan problem is the only one, the only issue is Pakistani, the groups who Pakistan says are there. So the brief answer to your question is frustration of the other countries are also increasing. And why? Why these countries? Russia recognized Taliban in July, was the first country. China has a very good relation with them. Iran enjoys very cordial relation with the Taliban. Almost all Central Asian countries minus Tajikistan, they all have very good relation. They don't have, they have concern, but our concern are genuine, because we are losing people daily, almost daily. So now I think the options are becoming, Taliban would have not many options if they did not act, because the world watches what is happening in Pakistan. That's why when we lose jawans, soldiers. So we receive statements from the United States, from Saudi Arabia, from Central Asian countries, because they realize this Pakistan challenges are now very serious. Pakistan concerns are genuine, and Afghan Taliban would
I
have to
get your
act.
point. Mr. Tahir Khan, one last question. As far as this particular collective opposition from these regional countries to the US retaking the control of the Bagram airbase, that happens to be the bigger air facility in Afghanistan. Now, they've called unacceptable the attempts by the countries to deploy their military infrastructure in Afghanistan and neighboring states, since this does not serve the interests of regional peace and stability. You would also be aware of the fact that how and in what tone President Donald Trump actually asked to retake this particular Bagram airbase from the interim Afghan authorities, which was right away rejected by the Afghan Taliban. Again, it has been reiterated by Amir Khan Muttaqi that Afghanistan is a free and independent country and throughout history has never accepted the military presence of the foreigners. How significant is this collective opposition from the regional countries to that very demand of US President Donald Trump of reacquiring the Bagram Air Base?
Pakistan and other regional countries, they are directly affected when something happens in Afghanistan. So what we are facing today, this is the policies of the war in Afghanistan. Even if we go a little bit back when the Soviet invaded Afghanistan, until 80s, when I was a student in Mardan and in Peshawar, people did not know Kalashnikov gun. But this became a culture in Pakistan because the situation in Afghanistan. So if there is a military conflict, because when Donald Trump repeatedly is saying the same thing time and again, and I think his tone may be harsh in the coming months if the Gaza issue is resolved. So if there is a conflict in Afghanistan, because Taliban would be never willing to hand over this facility again to the US, because they fought against the US. And I know when the talks were going on in Qatar, so this was the American demand that the Taliban should allow a small group of the intelligence operatives to stay in Afghanistan, a small group of military people, but the Taliban, they did not accept their demand. But now Donald Trump is demanding. So I think, and the demand not only one time, even during the election campaign. So this would be, I think, would be a conflict, could be an conflict, because the American, when the delegation was there for the prisoner release of the prisoner, so the American delegation also mentioned Bagram, that we need this for counterterrorism. So every American is now talking about Bagram. But if the conflict is, if a day can come when, if President Trump pushes for this, so there could be a problem. And the problem is, it will be directly affect Pakistan, Iran, China, Russia. That's why the regional countries are not supporting this idea and they are opposing it.
Right, Mr. Tahir Khan, Afghan affairs expert and a journalist, joining us through the video link. Thank you very much for your time, for being with us on the show tonight, really. Zahid Mahmood, resuming our earlier discussion from that very point, what is your understanding when this particular joint statement more specifically talks about the short time frame? And if that particular time frame passes by and there happens to be no cooperation, no effective cooperation on the part of the Afghan Taliban, what are going to be the likely best possible options for the regional countries when they work in unison and collectively in order to deter this menace of terrorism?
You see, Afghanistan is already squeezed. Internationally, they are being squeezed. They were almost given around $47 million per week by the United States of America, and they have also stopped giving them this aid. All regional countries, they want Afghanistan to be connected economically, their economic connection through the region. Like, for example, if China has a BRI in this region and the CPEC is a flagship project, so Chinese and Pakistanis would like that the stakes for Afghanis are created and they get linked with this economic prosperity, because this economic prosperity, bringing life to normalcy, that will help in eradicating the terrorism. because there are, there is all the breeding ground is available for the spread of terrorism and extremism only. Just there is no other activity is going on, no economic activity, no social political activity even, it's not going on. So the only activity which is going on is related to the terrorism, extremism and illegal spectrums. So that's what kind of Afghanistan we have today. And then the bigger powers, they were through this statement actually
Right.
they are conveying to.
Gentlemen, I seek your pardon for the interjection over here. When we try to analyze the statements by Amir Khan Muttaqi during his address, claiming that Afghanistan has transitioned from a security concern to a partner in regional stability and economic progress. Also, more specifically talking about Daesh that you already addressed quite in detail, and it also talks about narcotics trafficking as well. At the same time, in this very particular address, he has given some proposals, the first and the primary being that viewing Afghan issue from independent and objective perspective, also supporting Afghanistan's bid to become a hub for regional connectivity and economic progress. At the same time, it says that Afghanistan seeks positive relations with all the countries based on mutual respect and consideration of values, and is committed to regional connectivity and economic progress. Regional connectivity, economic progress, if that is what the Afghans want or the interim Afghan authorities want, why would they shy away from addressing the issue of terrorism, which seems to be the larger concern of the regional countries in particular?
I think simply they're avoiding to get themselves labeled with the terrorism factor only. Even once they were talking to Pakistan, and whenever they talk to Pakistan, they talk about the economic activities, doing business, and they don't address our concerns of terrorism, and they don't talk much about the terrorism because of the simple reason which I have told you. They don't want to get themselves labeled. But this is 21st century. Everyone knows what is going on in Afghanistan, and there is no, whenever we refer to the Doha Accord, we mostly talk about the soil part of this, that soil should not be utilized. But what about the rest of the political and other measures which they were supposed to be taking?
Exactly.
Where is that all-inclusive government? Where is that intra-Afghanistan dialogue? Where are the rights of the women? Where are the rights of even Afghanis themselves are suffering. So what I want to bring out is that whatever this Afghan interim setup is announcing in front of the world, or talking about in front of the world, practically they have done not much in any of the field. They are getting connected with, they are being, mostly it is because of the geopolitics that they're being recognized. Recently they have been recognized by the Russia, and probably this is first interaction after the recognition of Taliban. Let there be no doubt, these are the country's individual interest. So if it is suiting their interest, then they'll like to connect with you, and they will like to, it's as far as overall concerns of Afghanistan by any other country, I think that is not happening on ground. But this is the Afghani people who have to put pressure on this government to get connected with this regional efforts, to be very honest.
Are they in a position to do that?
I think they should be in a position, but they will have to exert the pressures. They are not in a position at the moment, but at least for how long you can, rule with this intimidation and coercion, and because this is a government which is an outcome of war. This is not an outcome of a popular democratic process. So maybe a few years down the line, there can be little bit more political pressure once you will start feeling yourself neglected from the, you're not contributing to the society, and you're living in that country where your voice is not heard. So then the environment will not take much time to change, That's why I always emphasize that Taliban must understand the regional dynamics, they must understand the international dynamics, and I agree with this, that Afghanistan can play a pivotal role. It can become a hub of the economic activity, but again it depends upon Afghan government interim setup, whatever support they need from the regional countries to address this issue of terrorism, that can be provided to them. But only I mean they'll have to give these guarantees to these people that we understand their limitations also. All the countries, they understand their limitations also, and they will have to either cooperate with the regional countries to address this issue, or as Americans, President Donald Trump has already very clearly indicated that they will have to pay the cost if they will not hand over Bagram, because they want to come in this. And once, if the Americans come back to this region, then again we will see the increase in chaos, and we are going to see another chaotic Afghanistan, which is already not in a good shape.
How do you respond to this particular collective reaction by these countries regarding US retaking the control with its military infrastructure in Afghanistan, or more specifically when President Trump has threatened with the tone that you've also mentioned regarding retaking the control of Bagram Air Base? Do you think the things are going to head into a direction where there could be some kinetic measures could possibly be adopted by the United States of America in that direction? And if that happens, what could be the ultimate possible scenario?
I don't think so any country would like to participate. If there is a kinetic application or forceful occupation of Bagram is concerned, this is all diplomatic and politics to me. Otherwise, Russians would have gone for a sport in Syria once the Assad regime was being removed from Assad was being removed. I think Russians they have their plate full. They are into a war. They are not in a position. India is a chameleon character. It is all cosmetic because of this trade tension between United States and India. That's why they are very little loud against United States of America. But still, their talks are going on. So they are not going to come in. The most the most affected countries will be Afghanistan itself, and of course then Pakistan, because we have the spillover effects of any presence of big power in this Afghanistan. So our society, our nation, our country is impacted the most, and I am sure a little bit of impact on Iran, because then Iran, already there is an application against Iran by the United States and Israel, and on the other hand, in the backyard again you have an Afghanistan where there is an American presence. So there are serious repercussions for Iran, and of course it will influence Chinese and Russian impact and their influence in the Central Asian regions as well. That's why they don't want Americans to be present, but primarily mostly because of their own needs and their own priorities, diplomatic and political priorities that they're emphasizing on this. It has nothing to do with Afghanistan.
Gentlemen, with one quick last question, this is a very important aspect. How do you see the endorsement by India of this particular joint statement, which opposes the US to retake the control of the Bagram Air Base? Is it because of the recently nosedived relationship between India and the United States of America, and do you think it's going to further deteriorate that bilateral relationship between the two?
It is just posturing and gesturing. Indians are not finding any landing grounds in any domain. In diplomacy and politics and military, they're not finding any landing ground. That's why they're trying to, just trying to create their own importance, and they're just, even if they're given chance or the things with Americans are settled, you will find this India going back again to the same, old tones and all that. They have nothing to do with Afghanistan. Their only interest in Afghanistan is that they need their soil, their support for spread of terrorism being the lead instrument of their policy, and especially to undermine Pakistan, and that's it.
Right. That brings us to the end of the first segment, and in the second segment we are going to talk about the killing as it continues by the Israeli illegal regime and its illegal occupation forces in Gaza, despite the ceasefire talks which are taking place for the last 3 days between the Hamas negotiating team indirectly with the Israeli delegation as well, and also including the mediators. So far, 67,183 people have been killed, 169,841 have been wounded since 7th of October, when Israeli waged their war against Gaza. There is a report by Palestinian Prisoners Society that more than 110,000 are being held in Israeli prisons as of the beginning of October. And the number of sentenced prisoners exceed 1,460 prisoners sentenced to life, and such indictments are 350. More than 400 child prisoners are detained in Ofer and in other prisons. At the same time, one of the members of the Hamas negotiating team says the lists of the prisoners required to be released as part of a ceasefire agreement have been exchanged in Egypt. At the same time, the Israeli minister, who happens to be the member of the cabinet, says the government will set the rules for ending the war and that the final picture must see Hamas disarmed and no longer in charge of Gaza. Although there has been a response by the Palestinian resistance group Hamas regarding that 20-point peace plan by President Donald Trump, but not more specifically about Hamas being disarmed or not having any sort of a role altogether in the future governance of Gaza. For this, we'll definitely be joined in the studio by Major General retired Zahid Mahmood. Also, through the video link, we'll be joined by Mr. Osama Nazzal. He's Palestinian affairs analyst. Mr. Nazzal, thank you very much for your time, also for being with us on this show tonight. Really appreciate that. How do you look at this particular development, these indirect talks between Israel and Hamas, also including the mediators, underway from the last 3 days, and one of the members of the Hamas delegation says that the mediators are making great efforts to remove any obstacles to the steps to implement the ceasefire, and spirit of optimism prevails among all. Negotiations focused on mechanism for implementing the end of war, the withdrawal of the occupation forces from Gaza Strip, and the exchange of prisoners. So sticking to the first one, when he talks that the spirit of optimism prevails among all, what sort of do you take out of this particular statement by one of the member of the Hamas delegations?
Negotiations are happening now in the Egyptian capital of Cairo with international momentum, as the American president sent his envoy to the Middle East, Witkoff, and his son-in-law, Jared Kushner. At the same time, foreign ministers of different countries, including, as far as I know, the foreign minister of Turkey, are going to be involved, and the prime minister, foreign minister of Qatar. So we are talking about regional and international momentum in order to push the negotiations process forward and get to the outcome that people are waiting for, which is the Israeli ceasefire. Really, that is the most important point that the Palestinians are looking for, which is to stop the Israeli war, to stop the Israeli genocide, and at the same time the captives, prisoners exchange. So Israel is trying to thwart that. Israel is trying to thwart that by continuing its war on Gaza. Today, Israel destroyed many buildings. Israel used booby-trapped vehicles today and demolished many areas in Gaza, and many people were killed, many people were injured, and that is the source of anxiety and fear. Is Netanyahu, the Israeli prime minister, going to pay any attention to this international effort, or he is going to turn his back on all that and continue killing Palestinians in Gaza?
Right. General Mahmood, what do you think? What sort of sense do you take out of this particular statement by one of the members of the Hamas delegation, now currently in indirect negotiations with the Israeli delegation, that there is optimism that is prevailing on all sides?
Yeah, this is very positive. I mean, at the moment, the first priority of the whole world is this establishment of the ceasefire. Then, of course, the follow-up mechanism, there are a lot of apprehensions about the follow-up mechanisms, but at least ceasefire for the people of Gaza is very important. And I think all the parties must work to achieve that ceasefire. President Trump has already taken position, he is using the stick and carrot policy. He has very clearly told Hamas also the consequences of the failures of talk, and he has also, I mean, indicated to Israel as well that they need to stop the, the operations, all kinds of operations. So there were certain things which were not decided yesterday. Probably this is the third day but today it is expected that in this session. Probably there are going to be, because Hamas has already decided to free all the prisoners. They've also decided that they are ready not to play any role, but on the condition that you hand over to the Palestinian people to run this country. No outsider is there. So these are two positive things. And of course, it is very challenging once you set up a very high objective of de-radicalization. Who will judge that this society is de-radicalized? You know, it takes processes. You can only de-radicalize a society or a community once you decide and once you bring the peaceful solution to the original problem. If you establish the two states, I mean Palestinian state, and statehood is given to them, they run their own affairs, then yes, that society will not remain radicalized. But if you are doing, I mean, this genocidal operations, this genocidal approach which has been taken, it has its own repercussion. So these are very high targets. Then disarmament, they have the, they have the fears that they will, you know. So I think a win-win will be that first of all we should establish, we are able to establish the ceasefire, because for the people of Gaza who are really suffering, and then the onus of responsibility will be on United States, and then whole world is seeing already Israel is isolated. Israel is also under a lot of pressure. We should not think that they are in a very comfortable situation. They are isolated. West is on the streets. Arab countries are, you know, raising voices, and there is even United States of America now. There's a lot of pressure on President Trump to, you know, rein Israel at the moment. You know.
Right, Mr. Nazzal, how much influence do you think Turkey can have regarding in convincing Hamas to agree to the 20-point peace plan by President Donald Trump? US President Donald Trump has asked Turkey to persuade Hamas to accept his plan for ending the Gaza war. That has been confirmed by President Recep Tayyip Erdogan in a transcript shared by his office on Wednesday.
Yeah, there is much by the state of Turkey on Hamas movement because of the long time relationship between the two parties, as Hamas officials had spent long time in Turkey. I think they are still, Hamas officials spent long time in Turkey, and I think this relationship is still continuing, and it is difficult for Hamas or any other party to ignore the opinion and the trend of the region. Apart from Turkey, you're talking about Qatar also, and we know that the leadership of Hamas movement now residence is in Qatar, and most of all is Egypt, which is considered as the lung of the Gaza Strip and the only lifeline, because it is the only outlet really for Gaza. So we are talking about the efforts of the main regional countries, Egypt, Turkey, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, combined, in addition also to the position of Pakistan. We should not forget that, and the statement by the foreign minister of Pakistan urging the stopping of the Israeli war on Gaza and to implement the plan and lead to the realization of the aspirations of the Palestinian people. So all these efforts combined have their influence, and Hamas is buying in that as it is negotiating seriously according to the reports coming from Egypt. But the main issue lies with Israel. Really, now all the cards are in the courtyard of Israel, and the Israeli Prime Minister and his government are the source of concern of thwarting and failing these efforts, because he believes that he can't continue his governance of Israel without continuing his war against Gaza.
Right, Mr. Nazzal, now, as you have already mentioned, and we know for a fact that Hamas is cooperating very positively as far as these negotiations are happening. A number of very important points they have already agreed out of that 20-point peace plan by President Donald Trump. What are those specific points which could happen to be the non-negotiables as far as Hamas's perspective is concerned?
Again, sorry?
what could be the non-negotiable points out of that 20-point peace plan by President Donald Trump for Hamas, although they are already in indirect talks with a positive approach?
Yeah, now the plan of Donald Trump is seen by the Palestinians in two ways. Concerning the fact that it leads to the cessation of the Israeli war against our people in Gaza, and the fact that it stops the expulsion of the Palestinian people from Gaza, and the fact that it allows the entry of humanitarian aid into Gaza. All these points are very important and very much related to what the Palestinians want. At the same time, concerning the prisoners exchange, yes, it is talking about the release of the Israeli captives and about the release of hundreds of Palestinian prisoners who are sentenced to life imprisonment. These points are positive, but what lacks in this plan is a viable solution, that it does not touch on the creation of the state of Palestine and the fact that Gaza should be united with West Bank and East Jerusalem on the basis of the two-state solution. So are the mediators and the international community going to seize this opportunity and this momentum and expand this plan to include these issues or not? That is the questions on the Palestinians' mind now.
Right, Zahid Mahmood, your quick answer regarding to would there be a state set if this particular Gaza peace plan is accepted by all the parties? There could be a state set for the establishment of an independent Palestinian state or the two-state solution.
I'll pray and I wish it happens, but probably a long way to go because there are many things. So there is a lot of, effort has to be put in, and a lot of diplomatic and political pressure by the Islamic world, especially important countries which Osama has already mentioned. These are the countries, because if it is not going to happen, it means that the project of Greater Israel, that is on, and this is only related to the disarmament of Hamas, taking out taking them out of the equation and then moving forward. It means that nefarious and that evil design is already applicable. Then we will see a new Arab coming out. Already there are serious concerns of the Arab world as far as their security architecture is concerned. So then we have a serious situation, and then we'll be finding more countries coming in with their policies, and this strategic landscape is going to change very quickly. What comes next, that will be very highly unpredictable but very dangerous.
So Major General retired Zahid Mahmood, defense analyst, thank you very much for taking time out for Views on News tonight. Really appreciate that. On the video link, we were joined by Mr. Osama Nazzal, Palestinian Affairs Analyst. Thank you very much for your time, Mr. Nazzal, for being with us on this show tonight. Really appreciate that. With that, we come to the end of today's episode. Till then, take good care of yourselves.